There's a really big trend about discipline and struggling and trying to make things way harder than it needs to be. I've really loved each part of my journey to becoming a surgical trainee. And one of the biggest takeaways is figuring out something that you're really passionate about and going for that. Stop forcing yourself to be disciplined. These are my motivation hacks from a doctor who has ADHD tendencies.
Now, all anyone can talk about is discipline on the internet, but there's something called motivation, and sometimes you should write it.
I'm Oliver, and I'm a third year surgical registrar.
And I'm Cece. I'm in my fourth year of being a doctor.
So the first one is ride the motivation wave. We all get lows and spikes about wanting to do study or more work. I think the biggest thing is really not neglecting those and just riding those waves as far as you can take them. When you have those lows, that's fine. And if you feel being motivated at a time that's unnecessary, just ride the wave anyways and take it as far as it can go.
Have you ever tried to force yourself through something that you really don't want to do? It kind of makes you hate it more. Of course, there's a point in which, you should try that 5 minute hack where you do something for 5 minutes and then after you've gotten over that initial inertia, sometimes you find you can carry on through. But there are times, if you can truly reflect on yourself, where you need a bit of a break. And actually, your study will be more productive if you go and have an ice cream or go to the gym or hang out with a friend and come back rejuvenated and excited to learn.
So you might have planned to study something, right? But you have this urge and this deep need to study something else. What riding the motivation wave means that you, instead of doing the thing you've planned, actually just do the other thing. And that burst of energy sometimes creates like projects that you couldn't have done that before, even if you were organized or planned to do something. And I think that's one of the big things for me with bits of ADHD tendency is that, like, even though I don't plan to do something, when I do the other thing that I feel like doing, and I'm so inspired to do something that something beautiful actually happens. And a lot of the time, the best things that I've ever created weren't from things that I've planned to do. The second thing is find out what brings your attention back to this present moment. There are a lot of times where I might be tired or bored or not feel like I want to do something else. What I recommend to do is turn yourself into a human experiment. Figure out what is it that really cranks your gears and motivates you to do something. For me, personally, I love listening to music or like a really short motivational clip. And before I go to the gym, when I'm so tired and I don't feel like it after a long day of work, I just pop on this 2 minute track and that makes me want to work out. So figure out like what makes you want to do those things.
And you can even use things like patience, for example. So sometimes when I have treated someone and I'm looking through their care, I'm curious to know, did my plan work? Did it not? And that sort of interest and potentially a bit of stress can push me to study around that condition and look into the proper management or the gold standard, for example. And that's a way to fire me up to make me interested in something because I have a real person to pin it back on. Number 3, caffeine. Now, I'm an absolute fiend for caffeine. I think it's one of the best legal stimulants that you can use to enhance your performance. And it's super cheap. I think that sometimes people think that caffeine is just like a fun thing in a coffee, but actually, drinking caffeine or finding coffee when I was in high school is probably what allowed me to understand how to focus. I don't know if you guys have ever had a cup of coffee, and it's just made the experience way more enjoyable. When you're not feeling tired, you're feeling hyped, and you're hyper focused with the perfect dose of caffeine for you, and now that's different for everyone based on a different day, then the whole experience of pushing yourself is way better.
And on that note of perfect dosing, I think again, turn yourself into a human experiment. Figure out how many milligrams are in each cup and just taper the amount you need for a different thing. So there's a really great paper talking about how much caffeine you need to do surgery, which is really different to how much caffeine you need to do an athletic performance. There are also multiple different ways you can take caffeine. The fourth and final one is protect your best focus hours. If I had one big regret in my whole entire life, it would probably be realizing the importance of waking up early for myself. I do my best work in the morning, and I always have since I was a child. But the problem was, I also really loved going out and socializing. If I thought about it and if I could go back, I would probably just make more social events during the day or during early evenings rather than trying to go out to big parties. And that's the biggest thing. And I think that I would have enjoyed my life or have progressed more or done more things that are really true to my purpose if I woke up earlier during my whole life. And that's one of the biggest things is I never ever sacrifice my morning as much as possible. And I wish that I learned that earlier. So for you, I think it's really important to figure out when is your time and protect that with your life.
For me, for example, when I was in first year health science, which is the competitive year where everyone tries to get into med school, I would really protect my weekend ritual, which is basically study all day from the morning, probably like 7 or 8 a.m. to about 4 p.m. Because by the time that's 4 p.m., it was time for a bit of a dance or movement because you'd get pretty fatigued and restless. And then if I wanted something fun, I'd always organize it, after my gym. And then after a bit of movement, I would be rejuvenated to do a little bit more study. And then I'd always push out dinner with a fun thing like catching up with friends because I knew that I was going to be tired after I ate dinner. And therefore, I could just go hang out, decompress, and then go home and sleep and do the whole thing over again. And that was kind of my most productive way to get everything that I valued in life done.
Hey, overall, there's a really big trend about discipline and struggling and trying to make things way harder than it needs to be. I've really loved each part of my journey to becoming a surgical trainee. And one of the biggest takeaways is figuring out something that you're really passionate about and going for that. There's a lot of things against passion at the moment, but I really do believe that it makes your life journey and it makes the plot line for your life story just so much better. I think the other big takeaway is the whole concept of being a human experiment for yourself. Like, be the scientist that understands the different times, different strategies, and different nootropics that help your human. Think of yourself as that human experiment, and how is it that you're going to make the best version of yourself and control your life? Don't let other people control you. Figure out what you really want and optimize yourself in that way.
And don't get us wrong, discipline's really important. But what's the point in forcing yourself to be really unhappy when you could save your energy and use that for actually doing the thing that you need to do? Now, there's this really interesting quote where we think that the most efficient way or productive way to do something is the fastest way to do something. And when you think about a car, the most efficient car gets from A to B with as little fuel as possible. And I think that's actually the true definition of productivity or efficiency. It's how much you can enjoy the process by optimizing your human and your environment, because that means that you can keep going for way longer than anyone else. And that's actually the real way that you win.
If you're interested in our journey or personally why I quit dentistry to do surgery, we'll put the link here. If you have any questions or anything, pop a comment down and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.